Yes! Oh, yes, yes, yes. It is here. It is now. It is 7 o'clock. Like Mr. Spock. I, Malcolm Tent, am here to talk logically about very emotional issues. That's music and records. Because that's what I do every Wednesday here at 7 o'clock p.m. on Facebook. I like to go live in the new reality to cast wide and far the seeds of discontent, of contentment, of knowledge, of speculation, of whatever you want to call it, about music and records and the people who make music and the people who make records and those of us who are just totally gaga about the subject. I don't mean Lady Gaga, although I am kind of like her. I was born this way. I just can't help it. I gotta share this stuff with all you people out there. Let's get my camera angle right here. Make sure I'm not too crooked. Yeah, there we go. It's looking a lot better. Cool, man. Yeah, good to be here in Danbury, Connecticut. We had a little bit of a tornado yesterday, but somehow it kind of swirled around my neighborhood. Unlike last time when my neighborhood was the one that got totally clobbered, so we're doing okay, and it seems like my neighbors are mostly skating through, so that's cool. We appreciate that. Before I really get going in earnest here on the topics, I just want to thank everybody who sent me stuff. A couple of weeks ago, I just sort of randomly said it would be fun if you people just sent me things, and I even held up my mailing address, which is right there, my mailing address, and don't, never mind the PayPal and all that, that's going to come later. But my mailing address, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470, that's P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. I said, send me some stuff. You know, I do this for free every week. The only thing y'all have to do is suffer through one of my commercials, just one commercial per episode, and the rest of the time I'm just happy to yap and yammer and yak away. But wouldn't you know it, some people sent me some stuff, and I want to show you guys for a second. My good pal Tim, out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, sent me a couple of discs by his band Fibber. All you old straight edge kids will recognize Tim. He was the drummer for Up Front, Mayapac's longest serving straight edge band. And Tim currently lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he's got a recording studio, and he's still in a band, and he sent me some Fibber discs, which I'm very happy to listen to. He also sent me a cool Fibber t-shirt, but I wore it a couple of times already, and it's in the laundry, and it's really gross, and I'm not going to wear it. But it looks really cool. It's a big skull made out of eyeballs. I love that kind of stuff. What else did somebody send me? This is really neat. From Lake Jackson, Texas. What would somebody send me from Lake Jackson, Texas? Ooh, a cassette. Look at that, a cassette, an old-fashioned cassette. Made on blank tape. This looks very promising. This is Chapels of Gore. Ooh, look at that. Chapels of Gore with a couple of Chapels of Gore stickers. I have not heard this yet, but I can sort of guess by the name of the band and the presentation what it's going to sound like. The minute I get a free cassette deck, I'm going to give this one a listen. Speaking of cassettes, we got from way out in the wilderness of Michigan a whole package from Americans Don't Eat Horses. I don't know if that's the name of the label or not, but Americans Don't Eat Horses from Alto, Michigan. Another cassette, a band called No Bales. Looks pretty neat. And a couple of records, BM and Denim. None of which I've actually heard yet, but all of which I will play, because once we're done with this bullshit new normal and get back to the old normal, which I wasn't much of a fan of anyway, but I was kind of used to, I'll have my radio show back on the air, and I will be in the process of auditioning anything that people send me to potentially play on the air. As I said before, I don't guarantee airplay, but I guarantee that I will listen to anything that anybody sends me, and if I think it works on my show, I'll play it. So yeah, if you want to send me stuff, there's my address again. P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. I also am guaranteed to read anything that comes across my desk. Pardon me while I reach over you. So I get a pair of scissors. This delights me, man, knowing that zines are still very much alive and well. Honest to God, print zines. There is certainly a place in this world for online blogs and stuff like that, but an actual, honest to God, magazine. This is the Bridge and Tunnel Crowd from New Haven, Connecticut. I love this magazine. I haven't read this issue yet. I just got it. These guys have the nuttiest, most eccentric, left-of-center aesthetic about them. It's great. You know, I mean, you probably really can't see everything that's going on here, but everything's done with a real high concept and really, really interesting points of view. So Bridge and Tunnel Crowd, very happy about that. Thanks for sending me that. Very happy to receive it. Very happy to read it. All right, kids, we're kind of warmed up here now. I think we've got anybody who's going to tune in is tuned in. A toast to you. Let's talk about records. Yes, let's talk about records. Y'all might remember a few weeks ago I did an episode on records that were supposed to be huge but weren't, for one reason or another. And as you could probably guess, if it relates to the record business, it's a twisted, sick, sorry Byzantine tale. And you can go on my Facebook page and scroll back. All of my videos are archived. So go back a few weeks and you can see the one about records that were supposed to be huge but weren't. Today, I'm going to talk about the opposite. Records that nobody really expected to be huge but exploded and kind of took everybody by surprise. And I speak from the perspective of being a lifetime, literally lifetime music fan, record collector, and longtime record dealer, both at my record store, Trash American Style, which I had a 21-year run at, and then after the landlord chucked us out of there, 13-ish years of selling records independently at various venues and areas. So these are records that nobody was quite expecting to be huge, and people were very surprised when they actually did get big. This is one that I owned when I was a kid. I got this from the Columbia House Record Club sometime around 1976 when it was released. It was a selection of the month. I'd already gotten my 20 records for a penny and had to pay full price for this one. I think I got it because I forgot to mail in the card and they automatically sent me this selection at full price even though I didn't actually want it. But this one right here, the Beach Boys, Endless Summer. Take a look at that cover. Look at those graphics, as best as you can see them with the light reflecting all over it. That's the front. That's the back. Awesome pop art cartoon cover. Double album repackaging of Beach Boys' greatest hits. Really awesome gatefold inner sleeve with more cartoon art, including this extremely accurate and very disturbing cartoon of Brian Wilson, who in 1976 was deep in the throes of mental illness and all kinds of wrestling with personal demons. But this was dropped onto the market around 1976 with really not much expectation. It was supposed to be yet another repackaging of the Beach Boys' greatest hits. And from what I understand, it was going to be released with a similar title, like Beach Boys' Greatest Hits Volume 25, or The Best of the Beach Boys, or, you know, whatever. Beach Boys Surfin' Favorites, with a generic cover. But it was Mike Love himself, you can see pictured right there, with his hairline tastefully hidden by a wave. You can't see the bald spot. But Mike Love, and by the way, I speak in that area with authority too. You can't see mine because I've got a little bit of tuft here, but trust me, there's plenty of chrome dome back there. I'm not ashamed. Mike Love, his head is naked and he's ashamed, but the artist compensated for it beautifully. It was Mike Love who suggested calling it Endless Summer and putting a package together that wasn't just a generic old picture from 55 years ago. And Core blimey, it took off. They probably sold, I don't know how many millions of these sold. Any of you internet fact checkers out there, millions of these things. I remember seeing it advertised on TV when I was a kid. You know, get home from 6th grade, go straight home to watch the Three Stooges and watch the Little Rascals and, you know, Popeye cartoons. And the commercial for Beach Boys' Endless Summer would pop up. So Capitol Records really worked this thing through the miracles of television broadcasting and advertising, and a really groovy op art cover that actually depicted the Beach Boys as they were at the time, which was really long-haired and freaky and kind of weird looking. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Look at Al Jardine on that thing, man. I mean, that's what he looks like in real life, but they were absolutely accurate. Kind of makes you wonder how they sold any of these at all. But I give them credit for that. You know, they actually got the job right on this one. And they sold millions of them. Meanwhile, over at Brother Records, which is owned by Warner Reprise, the Beach Boys, as they look like this, were releasing records like the Beach Boys Love You, Sunflower, 15 Big Ones, Holland, Surf's Up, and basically selling Jack. You know, they were like, they were tanking over there at Reprise with new albums, and I talked about one of those a few weeks ago as well. But meanwhile, over at Capitol, their old label, a nifty repackage is selling truckloads of albums, and this totally ended up redefining how the Beach Boys approached their career. They more or less, I mean, they continued to crank out new albums, and they would always play songs off their new albums whenever they toured. But really, from this moment on, they were like a nostalgia oldies act. And there's going to be Fun, 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 and Little Deuce Coupe, and Be True to Your School. I mean, how creepy is it to have a bunch of 80-year-old guys singing Be True to Your School? Or Surfer Girl? You know, especially, I don't know, I just would not, I really wouldn't want that guy. If I had a daughter who was a surfer girl, I wouldn't want that guy singing to her. I'd be really nervous about that. I mean, he's got every right to, but I'd be nervous about it, just saying. Eugh. So yeah, nobody expected it, but it happened. This still might be the biggest selling Beach Boys record in the entire catalog. Go figure. So a toast to that marketing genius, and also to creepy Mike Love for coming up with the idea. Toasts also to Joe, who's watching, and Marvin, and John Bowman, and Mike, and Nathan. Hello, guys. Gordon. Glad you guys are tuning in. This one, I'm very fond of. I don't know if I talked about this one before, but this was a record that nobody expected to get big. This was like a total dark horse release from day one, but somehow, it got huge. Now I'm talking about one of my favorite albums by one of my very favorite bands. I love this band, and I think this is their best album. I'm telling you right now, the one you hear tapping, this is the best album by one of my favorite bands ever. Yes, I'm talking about Combat Rock, baby, by The Clash. This is a great album. This is the best Clash album ever made. And I'll tell you why. Y'all know the story. Everybody knows The Clash. You know, punk rock pioneers. Started out, you know, contemporaries of the Sex Pistols and the Damned, 1976. Authentic, right there at the starting line, inventors of punk rock. They, unlike a lot of other punk rock bands, actually, in my opinion, stayed true to the spirit of punk rock, which, as I always understood it and I always applied it, meant you can do whatever you want. You've got absolute freedom to pursue your muse in any direction you want. And The Clash really picked that gauntlet up and ran with it. You know, it's like the first album was pretty much by the numbers, punk rock. Second album, more of the same. The third album, London Calling. things start to get interesting with London Calling. You can hear all kinds of influences creeping into the mix. And they're starting to learn how to stitch them together and how to make new songs and new sounds. And after that, Sandinista, which more of the same. You've got all these influences coming in. Reggae was probably predominant, but they're still stitching them together. And then by the time combat rock rolls around, they got it. They've got all kinds of international, and I won't say world music because I hate that term. World music makes me puke. But the idea of global music, music from all over the planet, from all kinds of different cultures, being stitched together into a seamless whole, now that's interesting. And the Clash did it, man. I've gone so far as to say that they invented an entire new style of music on this album. There's no other record out there that sounds like this one. Such a great record. And maybe because of that, and maybe because of the Clash's past track record as being a respectably selling punk rock band, you know, nobody really had expectations about this one. You know, the Sandinista before this was a triple album, which is only going to sell so many. Before that was London Calling, which is a double album, which is only going to sell so many. For this one, they scaled it down dramatically and released just a single, tight, concise LP. One record. And, you know, when the first pressings of it were marketed kind of like a punk rock or a new wave album would be. They had these really cool hype stickers on the front. You know, the Clash featuring the hits blah, 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 yak, yak, yak. You know, 4 different stickers, each one with an individual band member for all the collector types. You know, pretty cool stuff. Lyric sleeve, custom labels. I'm sure the Clash paid for every single one of these accoutrements, because as we know, nothing is for free in the record business. Everything's paid for by the artist. But still, it's a really cool package. And so the record got released and thrown out onto the market and, you know, sold whatever it was going to sell. Funny thing is, soon thereafter, this thing called MTV started polluting the airwaves. And for one brief shining moment, one brief flash in the gigantic grand scope of history, MTV was like really exciting. MTV, when it first came out, was really cool because it literally was wide open. It was the only time in the entire history of corporate media that the field was open to just about anybody. Anybody from Duke Jupiter to the Clash had a chance to get a video on MTV because they had to fill 24 hours of programming. They had to play something. You know, you can't play Duke Jupiter 24 hours a day. You got to play something. And there really was only a finite number of videos. I remember in the very early days of MTV, they would show the entire Woodstock movie in the middle of the day. They would show an entire Bob Welch concert on a Tuesday night. They just had to fill the time. So anybody who had a video had a stab at it. And MTV had been on the air for a couple of years by the time Combat Rock came around. So when MTV was presented with Rock the Casbah by The Clash, they started playing it. And wouldn't you know, it caught the public imagination, no doubt with plenty of greasing from the usual channels in the music biz and the industry. But let's face it, it's an awesome video. It's a great song. And MTV started playing the hell out of it. It seemed like they played it every hour on the hour practically. And people started buying Combat Rock in droves. We're talking about regular, normal people. The whole punk sucks. Fuck punk. Those are the people who are going out and buying the Clash now all of a sudden. You know? Good for the Clash. They're selling tons of them. And all of a sudden, the record company pretty much can't keep track of demand. And if you're one of these freaks and geeks like I am, you start noticing the differences in the pressings. Like, you can tell, and it's really, really hard to show this on video because I've got a cheap camera and the lighting's gross. But the different covers, if you look very carefully, are printed in different ways. Like they started out with the seamless, one-piece laminated covers, and then as they kept selling records by the boatload, they had to start jobbing the manufacturer of covers out. So you started getting ones that had these seams on the top. And they were printed on somewhat thicker cardboard. These are the old-fashioned tip-on covers. I don't think Columbia had used tip-on covers in years, but they're selling so many damn Clash records, they had to farm them out to manufacturers who use tip-on covers. And also, after a while, these wonderful these custom Clash labels got thrown totally by the wayside because they couldn't print them fast enough. So you started seeing combat rock records with generic Epic labels. They were selling lots of records. And it was just such a bittersweet pill for those of us who loved punk rock, because, you know, now our band and many others like them are starting to get their due, and they're getting airplay, and they're getting famous, and they're selling lots of records. But, all right, I'm going to go ahead and say it. A lot of goddamn idiots were jumping on the bandwagon, too. That part I didn't like about it. I did not like these morons who I had to go to school with, who are like all the whole punk sucks contingent. All of a sudden, they're, you know, at Specs Music at the mall buying combat rock. That I didn't like. I didn't like that at all. I still don't like that. I do like the fact that because of this kind of saturation marketing and these huge sales, that maybe your odd freaking weirdo out there like myself, who never would have heard the Clash, now heard the Clash. And if you're even freakier than I am and weirder than I am, or at least as freaky and weird as I am, you do what I do and you start going through the labyrinth. You start off with combat rock and you want to know more about the Clash. So that's when you seek out Sandinista and London Calling and the self-titled album and the UK singles and the compilations and the soundtracks. And you hear a song like Sean Flynn, which is an amazing piece of music, and you want to know where that music came from. Like, how did they even come up with this? What sounds like this, you know? And you start reading all the interviews and buying all the magazines, and they start name-checking some of the great reggae bands and reggae producers and old rockabilly guys, and you start checking them out. And all of a sudden, it might be just one or two or three kids out of a million who do their homework, but all of a sudden, you've actualized those people, and you've created a whole new generation of serious diehard music fans who probably never would have known about guys like Joe Eli or Lee Scratch Perry or Bo Diddley or Bobby Fuller if it weren't for the Clash. So it's really, really good idea and a neat fluke that this record actually took off. And it's really good for me too, because all the normal people who bought this and listened to it once or twice and said, ew, too weird, and then stuck it in a box, I'm still finding these at tag sales to this day because of that. Luckily, there's always going to be a combat rock in a tag sale somewhere that I can pick up for $1 and then flip to you, my frantic fans, and more than casual consumers who like to buy good records. This is one of the best. And nobody expected it to be big. Pretty crazy, huh? Let's take a sip of water here. I'll bet that sounds very interesting out there. That's why I did it twice. And now 3 times, because I'm once, twice, 3 times a sonic troublemaker. I can't help it. It's genetic. It's part of my genetic imperative. Let's take a quick scroll down and see who's tuned in. I know there's going to be a lot of opinions here, pro and con. That's what we specialize on, opinions and very strong feelings about music. This is great. This is fun. Nick says that Combat Rock is his favorite Clash album. Gordon Thompson disagrees vehemently. Yes. See, that's what it's all about, man. Shannon, my main dog, he used to be out there in Roanoke, Virginia, currently in North Carolina. Hello, Shannon. Good to hear from you. Ms. Gelman, hello. John Bowman, who I just did an epic 4-hour interview we had the Anti-Scene Bass Player Summit on video, which is going to be posted on the Anti-Scene Facebook page over the next month or so. John Bowman's checking in. Hello, hello. Ray Gelman likes my haircut. That's a Paris Mancini haircut. PJ is in town and she cut my hair. And hello, everybody else. Yeah, totally, man. Good stuff. I'm also going to be tuned in after I'm done talking to commiserate and chat and get on my high horse and see if I can follow up on, you guessed it, we're here at the midway part of the broadcast. It's time for the commercial message for one of the very few products that's actually worth a good goddamn. One of the very few products that offers you value for money. One of the very few products that will give you 14 amazing songs on 12 inches of astonishing colored vinyl. Look at that color. Can you see that? Colored vinyl. You guessed it. You've heard about it before. Maybe you're one of the lucky, smart people who've actually bought it. Maybe you haven't done it yet, but it's the Malcolm Tent solo album entitled The Multiple Moods. Where is it? The Multiple Moods of Malcolm Tent. I've been in this record business, the music business, as a band guy and a music maker and a noise creator since 1983. And when it came time to make my first solo album, I thought the only thing that made any sense was to make a career retrospective featuring many, not all, but many of the bands I've been in since 1983. Look at all those bands. Shannon Naff will recognize Broken Talent. Ray Gelman will recognize the King Hatreds. Anybody from Danbury will recognize the Bunny Brains. You people who are following music right now, you know the almighty Anti-Scene. You know me, Malcolm Tent. You've heard of the Residents. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, as it says right there, those are the weasel words. For all intents and purposes, that's a Residents track. And you'll see why I think I can get away with saying that if you read the trusty, handy, well-written liner notes by me. Shannon Naff, you recognize this guy? We played your basement in Roanoke, Virginia in 1985. I'm sorry, it was Jeff's basement in Roanoke, Virginia. Boy, we played Jeff's basement in Marion, Virginia in 1985. That guy right there. And if I ever do tour stories, you'll hear about that one. That was a wild goddamn show. One of the wildest I've ever played. But it's here, man. The Multiple Moods of Malcolm Tent. 14 bands, 14 songs. $15 plus shipping. That's 14, 14, 12, and 15. $15, I should say, shipping included. $15 post-paid for 14 bands on 12 inches of vinyl. You can get it on Discogs and eBay. Or you can PayPal me directly, mt@malcolmtent.net. Or getting back to the idea of people sending me things, cold hard cash, baby. Money order, whatever you want. P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. I don't expect anything in life. I did not expect this to reach the level of Combat Rock. Or the Beach Boys' Endless Summer. Let's see if I can do that. Hey, look at that. Pretty cool, huh? That should be a meme. But I do expect it to sell quite a few more. It's been selling quite well, actually. I'm very happy with the way it's been going. I'm very pleased with that. And I want to thank anybody who's bought one. And I want to thank everybody who's going to buy one right now. If you like CDs, we have the special elongated UK tour only CD. That's only $10. This is darn good stuff. Multiple Moods of Malcolm Tent. Brought to you by me. I can hardly think of anybody more deserving. All right. Ready to hear about a couple more records that nobody thought were going to be big, but ended up being huge? I'm going to take that to mean yes. I'm going to take that to mean yes. You want to hear more about this stuff. Scroll down to see who's there. Gordon Thompson says I should sell my soul. In a way I am. In a way I am. You can't see it. There's a lot of soul in these grooves. There's a lot of soul in these grooves. All mine, baby. All mine. $15 post-paid. That's the price of Malcolm X's Soul on Wax. All right, another record that nobody thought was going to be big, but ended up being huge. And this is for some rather icky circumstances. Not the usual icky record business circumstances, although in a way that always plays into it. The year was 1980, and it was time for the big comeback. The big comeback of John Lennon. And even though nobody wanted it, Yoko Ono. And we'll address that in a second. Don't you think for a minute I'm going to start bashing Yoko Ono. That ain't going to happen. But we'll get to that in a minute. The big return to the market of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, the double fantasy album. This album got an awful lot of publicity when it first came out because it's the return of John Lennon and Yoko Ono. The thing is, when this record first came out, it kind of flopped. You know, the reviewers were like, oh boy, look at this, a whole album of John Lennon singing about how great it is to be a house husband, and oh, he baked a loaf of bread, and oh, he's in love with that bitch who broke up the Beatles. Oh boy. Here's a song about not doing anything. You know, this is a really boring record. That was pretty much the consensus of the reviewers when this album came out. It did not get universally praised. And it didn't sell that well. They released it, and this was kind of a syndrome for a lot of stuff that came out originally on Geffen Records. You can see right there. Geffen was started by David Geffen, oddly enough, amidst lots of hoopla that he was going to have this all-star roster of established recording artists like John Lennon and Yoko Ono and, you know, Donna Summer, Elton John, and some new signings like Quarter Flash. But none of those records took off, really. Like, not a single one of those records made a huge impact in the marketplace. Maybe some did eventually, and they did end up having traction in the marketplace. But by and large, they just kind of sat there and bubbled under. And this album was one of them. Then, of course, December 7th, and I'm terrible with dates, please correct me if it was the 8th. I think it was the 8th. 1980, Mark David Chapman, genetic defective idiot, points a gun at John Lennon and kills him. You know what happened next. All of a sudden, everybody in the fucking universe needs to own their copy of Double Fantasy by John Lennon and Yoko Ono. They were selling these records so fast that the shrink wrap machines at the pressing plant couldn't keep up with them. And just to give you a little explanation for the terminology, a record, when you buy it new, usually if it's a domestic product, has got the shrink wrap on it. And it's got the plastic wrapping, this tight plastic wrapping on the outside, which you can kind of see there. You know, heat sealed, shrink plastic wrap. They were selling these things so fast that they were sending them out without the shrink wrap shrunk. The plastic was hanging loose on the records because it took too long to run the plastic through the shrink wrap tunnel. They would just put the loose plastic wrap on them, ship them out. I remember seeing displays full of these records with the loose wrap because they didn't have time to shrink them. People are buying these records. They had to have them. And now all of a sudden you read in the music press, oh my God, what a touching, poignant record. He baked a loaf of bread. He was in love with his wife, even if she was Yoko Ono. He didn't do anything. He was having retirement. He was a loving house husband. All of a sudden, it's this wonderful, tranquil depiction of domestic bliss. All of a sudden, everybody loves it. Even if it does have... Actually, people just pretty much ignored the Yoko Ono tracks on this record. It's always referred to as a John Lennon album. But it's half John Lennon, half Yoko Ono. And yes, after he got shot, they sold more of these than they could even hardly keep up with in the market. Ugh. It's fucking gross is what it is. My opinion of this record, and I'm going to say hi to my BFF, Jill. Hi, Jill. Michael Grosso correcting me. Yes, December 8th. Thank you for the correction. Hello, Bronson, and everybody else out there. The video just died, as it almost always does, and though I'm sure I'm still going live, somebody please tell me if I'm live or not. Give me a little bit of feedback, and then I'll give you my opinion of this album. My opinion. Without nostalgia, without dewy-eyed optimism, without cynicism either. Because I love music. Music is the best. So I want to give you my honest-to-God opinion of this album. If I'm still on. Alright, still live, still live. Okay, cool. Here's my honest opinion of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Double Fantasy. Here's what I really think about this record. It's half songs by John Lennon, half songs by Yoko Ono. The John Lennon songs, I agree with the pre-assassination critics. I honestly think it's pretty boring. It's really generic, by-the-numbers, middle-aged rock and roll for generic, by-the-numbers, middle-aged rock and rollers. And I've listened to this record a lot. I'm not one to really make snap decisions. I'm the kind of guy who'll go back and listen to a record ad infinitum, trying to see if I didn't miss something the first time around. I've played this record a lot, and I'm sorry, guys, the John Lennon tracks from this record they're dull. They're really dull. They're middle of the road. They're not that great. Don't like them. On the other hand, the Yoko Ono tracks on this record are badass. Yoko Ono was laying down some serious, edgy, confrontational, downtown, post-new wave mayhem on this record. Her tracks on this album kick butt. I'm serious, gang. I don't think any one of her songs ever got played by anybody ever because they just wanted to hear a John Lennon record. But if anybody really took the time or had the inclination to listen to the whole record and were into something a little more cutting edge, a little more adventurous, maybe a little more dangerous, the Yoko Ono tracks on this record are awesome. When I listen to this record, I skip the John Lennon tracks and I play the Yoko Ono tracks. Because they're good. They are seriously good. It's a stylistic difference. It's nothing more than that. It's a matter of style. The vast majority of the unwashed, ignorant, sort of kind of people who listen to music a little bit maybe because it's something they hear at the grocery store will always go for the John Lennon tracks. But in my opinion, people who have a discerning ear and like their entertainment a little bit sharper, Yoko, baby. Yoko only. That's what Malcolm Tent says. You're welcome to agree or disagree. If you disagree, you, and this is a case of picking up the gauntlet, you should do what I did. Get a cheap camera. This is like a $19 video camera. You can probably tell by the quality of the video feed. Get a $19 video camera and go live and talk about it. Put your thesis forth and defend it. Let the people listen. Because this stuff is great. Music is the best. And talking about it is a lot of fun. And I want to thank everybody out there. I want to thank Bob and Mick and Warren and Mr. Smith and Billy Death and Bronson, Ted. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And somebody mentioned that Whipped Cream and Other Delights is a great album. I'm going to stay out of that one. Malcolm Tent says, no comment. One more. Got one more. One more record to talk about. A record that nobody thought was going to be big, but ended up being really big. Much to my absolute delight. And that's half because of, half in spite of, what I addressed earlier with the Clash combat rock. It's definitely a mixed bag of emotions when your very favorite band of all time gets big. When you've spent the previous several years being mocked, ridiculed, teased, and picked on, at least in part because you like punk rock and new wave, and the most recognizable, even at this early stage of the game, maybe the most recognizable faggoty new wave band that all the jocks like to pick on is, you guessed it, Devo. Yep. A definite mixed bag when Devo made it big. Real mixed bag. Because anybody who's known me more than 12 minutes knows what this band means to me. Devo are the be-all and the end-all. I'm not going to belabor that point. I'm going to talk about how odd and unusual and bizarre it was that this album got to be as huge as it got to be. We got to go back in time just a little bit. In 1978, for a very brief moment, Devo were like the prettiest girl at the prom. Everybody wanted to take Devo out on a date. They had just recorded their first album, the immortal Are We Not Men, We Are Devo, produced by Brian Eno. David Bowie backed them. They had already done a lot of playing. They worked hard. Total conceptual package. All the record companies wanted them. Everybody wanted to sign them. In an absolutely absurd error, comedy of errors, tragedy of errors, they ended up getting signed to two different labels. In Europe, it was Virgin. In the US, it was Warner Brothers. And that resulted in a big lawsuit filed by Warner Brothers. And I'm sure Richard Branson over at Virgin wasn't too happy about it either. There were a lot of really unhappy parties involved when Devo signed to Virgin, even though Warner Brothers had already been negotiating with them. Okay, you got problems right there. You got other problems with a guy named Bob Lewis, who I always call Bob Zero. And I don't mean zero as in he was a zero. I mean zero as in zero being an integer and the number from which all other numbers flow. Bob Zero was acknowledged by all as, at bare minimum, a co-founder of Devo, a co-creator of Devo, a co-conceptualist of Devo. And once again, through a whole long series of weird situations, he had to end up suing the band in order to get his due as co-creator of Devo. And he won, just in case anybody's wondering. I think they settled out of court, but he won. They didn't just throw him out. He got it. Very important. So already, okay, Devo, the critics' darlings, they've already been embroiled in two big legal actions. There were huge hassles over the cover art because Chi-Chi Rodriguez, who this isn't, by the way, I mean, it's just such an incredible story. Y'all got to research it on your own to see just how twisted the circumstances were prior to the manufacture of the first Devo record. So with all that going on and all the hype and all the glory, Warner Brothers over here and Virgin over there had big expectations for the first Devo record, and they were kind of met. Records sold respectably, did pretty well. I think 250,000 is what they sold on it. Once again, anybody out there who's got access to the internet and the raw facts, feel free to chime in. but I seem to recall that they sold 250,000 of Are We Not Men, We Are Devo, which is pretty respectable, unless you've already been through 2 great big costly lawsuits and hassles over the cover, and the guys in the band are kind of difficult to deal with, and the concept is maybe a little bit above and beyond what the average consumer out there can consume. To sell 250,000 after all that, well, let's see what happens next time. Well, what happens next time is the Devo number 2 album on the marketplace, the brilliant Duty Now for the Future. I'm going to say right now, kids, this record, as far as this rabid Devo freak and geek is concerned, is every bit as good as Are We Not Men, We Are Devo. This album rules hard. Unfortunately, this album sold about half of what Are We Not Men sold. So now the record companies are getting a little bit antsy. So they're thinking, well, goddamn, we sink all this money into these guys. We've been through 2 ugly lawsuits, and they're not performing. Sales are not quite what they should be. And the basic attitude was that if the 3rd Devo record doesn't perform, they're out like stout. There ain't going to be no more Devo on Warner Brothers, because they did not perform up to expectations. So it's pretty critical now. 3rd Devo record, it's pretty much literally do or die. So the 5 Spud Boys from Akron, Ohio get down to work. They retool the image. They retool the sound. They get a producer who they're simpatico with. They come up with an image that nobody can deny. One of the most striking images ever. Whether you like the band or not, you recognize this version of Devo. Doesn't matter if you love them. Doesn't matter if you hate them. When you see that headgear, you know exactly who it is, and you know exactly what era it is. So they released this album, Freedom of Choice, and it's not selling. After all that, they released the album, and it's not really selling. It's really not going anywhere. Sales are kind of sluggish. They had picked a couple of songs they thought were going to be the hit singles, one of which they actually released a promotional 12-inch single of, a song called Gates of Steel. They made videos for Girl You Want and for the song Freedom of Choice. And all the people like me who love Devo from the beginning, and all the regular new wave and punk rock freaks and geeks, we're loving it, because we're seeing Devo on Merv Griffin, and we're seeing Devo on, whatever it was at the time, Friday Night Videos, because this is pre-MTV, this is 1980. We're seeing this record and loving it. We saw them on Fridays. We love it. Warner Brothers, not loving it, because the record's not selling in the numbers that it's supposed to be selling. So Devo's on tour in Europe, all this is going on, and the record's kind of slowly swirling in the bowl and about ready to go down. And it's one of those things, one of those complete imponderables, that all of a sudden this song plugger from, of all places, Miami, Florida, my hometown, this guy named Cal Rudman from Miami, Florida, who's a song plugger and an independent promo dude, took a liking to a song on side 1, track 3 of Freedom of Choice, a song called Whip It. He liked that song and decided to start working it. And then the machinery being what it is, and the industry being what it is, this song started getting a lot of airplay on Y100 in Miami, and people started sniffing around, and I don't want to use the word payola. Others have. Plenty of others have. When I interviewed Bob Casale, aka Bob 2 of Devo, he used the word. I'm not going to use the word, but you get what you pay for. And the machinations were put into motion, and the right things were done with the right people, and all of a sudden Whip It started going up the charts, started getting big, started getting huge, started making money. The record companies are starting to smell gold and smell platinum. Gold, platinum. I like that. It smells good. It smells like victory. And sure enough, you got yourself a hit single. You've got Devo everywhere, and everybody knows Whip It, Whip It. What's funny, what's really funny, and this is something that Bob Casale told me directly, and which I've also read elsewhere, is that right as Whip It was going up the charts, Warner Brothers decided to... Okay, so we've already ascertained that payola is a forbidden word. You don't use payola. I'm not accusing anybody of payola, but Warner Brothers discontinued the use of independent promoters. I guess they decided to save money somewhere and have a healthier bottom line by not paying people to promote their records. They did that just as Whip It was about to crest. This is what I was told. This is what I've read. And Whip It started to go, instead of going like this up the charts, started to go like that on the charts. And that was basically the end of Devo as a hit-making machine. But by then, the damage was already done. The album had gone platinum, the single had gone gold, the tour was a sellout, and this imagery of Devo, the guys with the flower pot hats, the guys who got in so much trouble with network TV for the Whip It video, the guys who were such a pain in the ass to deal with because they simply would not play the game, because they would not suffer fools, they were on the map. In spite of everything, they were on the map, and it happened, and they last forever. Devo, gang, Devo. The record that was not supposed to happen, but actually did. It somehow happened. And for that, I'm a happy spud. Very happy spud. And that's it, gang. 4 records that nobody really expected to be big, but ended up being big. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. Just some of the many, many, many stories we've got for this sick, ridiculous thing that we call the music business, and the precious, priceless product that is cradled within that filth. Music. Music! Our motivating factor, and the one that we, for better or worse, rely on the music business to deliver to us. So I'm going to deliver 2 more nuggets of wisdom here before I sign off. This is something I was going to talk about a couple of weeks ago, and any trashies out there, anybody who used to shop at my record store, Trash American style, I got something that you might want. As I mentioned before, you know, the landlord screwed us out of the store on Mill Plain Road. That still sounds good, doesn't it? Someone should make a rhythm track out of that. Just give me credit. That's all I ask. Give me credit and 2 points on anything you make. If y'all shopped at Trash American style, we had a good 20-year run there. You might remember that we had the shelf full of 7-inch singles, and the 7-inch singles were all packed in white cardboard boxes, which people would write on and draw on, put their band stickers on, they'd tag them up. I didn't care, it was part of the atmosphere. I basically still have those boxes. I use them until they fall apart. And recently, one of them fell apart. This is the remnants of a Trash American style box. It's got one of Kathy's stickers on it. Some label stickers, a 45 Studios sticker. Open it up, it's got some more of Kathy's immortal philosophy on it, handwritten, a band sticker. That's the front of it. That's the front of the box. The indie and underground new and used section. featuring the remnants of a tag by Cyst. Anybody from New Milford, you'll recognize that. And basically, this box was in use up until a few days ago. It completely fell apart. And I folded it up and, you know, sort of made a package out of it. And I was just gonna toss it in the recycle bin. And I was like, you know what? Maybe somebody out there would want this. Maybe somebody who shops Trash American Style and has fun memories of it like I do would want this. I could probably just put some duct tape or some packing tape on this right here as is, seal it up nice, and mail it to you. So if you want an honest-to-God, authentic piece of Trash American Style history to clutter up your home, just send me a couple of bucks for shipping. As we mentioned already, PayPal mt@malcolmtent.net. First come, first served, like $5. I'll make a mailer out of it and I'll mail it to you. And you can actually reassemble it. These things are modular. You can totally reassemble this thing and remake a box out of it. So if you want it for nostalgic purposes, just pay me the shipping and I will mail it to you. If nobody wants it, it goes in the recycle bin. Everybody wins. But yeah, an honest-to-God piece of Trash American Style could be yours just for shipping. And I'll ship anywhere, I don't care. We all know I'm a mellow guy. I just want to also remind everybody to tune in every Sunday to the anti-scene, I'm sorry, scratch that, every Tuesday to the anti-scene Facebook page to catch Break On Through, brought to us by the unimpeachable president for life, Jeff Clayton, who is my boss in the almighty anti-scene. He's doing a long-running historical narrative of the band. Pretty cool stuff. And then, here's where Sunday comes in. I'm going to be streaming a recorded video of me and John Bowman doing the Anti-Scene Bass Player Summit, talking about our parallel paths outside of the band, in the band, and activities around the band. So lots of history going on there, lots of excitement, a lot of cool stuff. We're taking this newfangled technology and making it as entertaining, as informative as we can for all of you out there, our frantic fans and loyal listeners. Final shill, don't forget, my awesome solo album. Get it on Discogs and eBay. Get it from me direct. Just get it. Just get it. That's all I ask. I had to take the cat to the vet yesterday. $175 to take the cat to the vet. The more Malcolm Tent records I sell, the more veterinarian bills I've paid. And the happier Harry the cat is. He's asleep peacefully back there, so I'm not going to interrupt him. But trust me, Harry's a good guy, and he deserves it. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'll be logged on for a little while. And hope you're all doing well. Stay insane. And I expect to be back, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, in about 167 hours. So until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.